I want you to try a little experiment with me today.
Okay.
Picture your morning commute. You leave your house, you lock the front door, and, maybe you hop in the car or walk to the transit stop.
Right.
You grab a coffee at that drive-through on the corner, the one with the massive line,
Oh, yeah. Always a line.
always.
Yeah.
And then you merge onto the highway, driving past that colossal logistics warehouse that just seems to stretch on for 3 postal codes.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, you park in a downtown office tower, or maybe you pull into an industrial park.
And for most people, that's just the backdrop of modern life. It's just, there.
Exactly. To most of us, looking at it, that is just scenery.
Yeah.
It's concrete, glass, asphalt, maybe a little bit of landscaping if they're fancy.
Right.
But if you swap out your lenses, specifically for the ones we're using today, based on this really massive stack of research we've got.
It is a huge stack.
It really is. But if you look through that lens, that isn't scenery at all. It is a massive, high-stakes operating system.
That's a great way to put it.
We are talking about commercial real estate, or CRE.
Yes.
And I have to admit, before we really started digging into these source materials for this deep dive, I had this assumption that CRE was basically just, well, residential real estate, but bigger.
Like buying a house, just with a few more zeros at the end of the price tag?
Exactly. I thought, instead of a condo, you buy a strip mall.
Right.
Instead of a townhouse, you buy a warehouse.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at the legal frameworks, the financing models, and the sheer level of risk in these documents, that's a dangerous assumption to make, isn't it?
Oh, it's a fatal assumption.
Fatal.
Truly. If you walk into commercial real estate with a residential mindset, you are going to get eaten alive.
Wow.
The rules are different, the laws are fundamentally different, and the players are engaged in a completely different sport.
Okay.
To put it bluntly, residential real estate is playing checkers in your living room.
Okay.
Commercial is playing 3D chess in a courtroom.
I love that image.
Huh.
3D chess in a courtroom. So here is our mission today for you listening. We are going to decode this complex world.
Mm-hmm.
We want to take you from seeing buildings just as structures to seeing them as financial instruments, legal battlegrounds, and really complex business transactions.
Because that's what they are.
Right. And we have a mountain to climb here. From the wild west of unregulated leases to the environmental hazards that can literally bankrupt you.
It is a heavy stack of research to get through, but it's fascinating once you peek behind the curtain.
It really is. But let's start with the atmosphere, sort of the vibe check.
Okay.
What is the fundamental difference in the air when you walk into a commercial brokerage versus a residential one?
Mm-hmm.
Because the sources say they feel very different.
They feel different because the motivation is completely different.
Oh, so.
Well, it comes down to a single word, really. Logic.
Logic.
Yeah. Think about how you buy a home. It is inherently emotional.
Oh, absolutely.
You walk in, you smell cookies baking, you see the way the afternoon light hits the breakfast nook, and you fall in love.
Right. You're picturing your life there.
Exactly. You picture your kids running down the stairs. You are buying a dream. You're buying your future memories.
Okay.
In commercial real estate, nobody cares about the cookies.
The cookies are totally irrelevant.
Entirely irrelevant. It is purely about the return on investment, or ROI.
Just the numbers.
It involves cold, hard financial statements. The buyers and sellers are sophisticated business people. They don't want a home. They want a yield.
Right.
They want to know that for every dollar they put into this machine, they're getting $1.20 out.
So the emotion is stripped right out of it.
And because of that, the transactions are incredibly complex.
The sources really emphasize the timeline difference here, too. You aren't closing these deals in 30 days like you might with a bungalow.
Rarely. You're looking at months, sometimes years.
Years.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
These projects require extensive research. We are talking about massive amounts of data, demographics, zoning laws, environmental history, because the stakes are so high. Millions, sometimes billions of dollars. So the due diligence period is extended. You just can't rush it.
But there is a flip side to this cold logic environment that actually appeals to a lot of agents, which I found on the notes.
Ah, yes. The lifestyle factor.
This actually really surprised me.
Yes. Think about the life of a residential agent. When do they actually work?
Well, evenings and weekends. Because that's when their clients aren't at work and can actually go look at houses.
Exactly. You miss soccer games, you miss family dinners, you're showing houses on a Sunday afternoon.
Right.
But in commercial real estate, your clients are business owners. When do they work?
Normal business hours. 9 to 5. Monday to Friday.
So generally speaking, commercial real estate occurs during office hours. It's a surprising perk for the agents. They actually get their weekends back.
That's a huge benefit.
It is, but the barrier to entry is much higher. You can't just charm your way through a commercial deal.
No cookies to bake.
Right. You need real financial literacy. You need to understand balance sheets, capitalization rates, and tax implications.
Right.
Many brokerages explicitly look for people with post-secondary education or backgrounds in finance because you are essentially a business consultant who happens to sell buildings.
That makes perfect sense. You aren't selling a lifestyle, you're selling a business asset.
Precisely.
So let's talk about those consultants, the players on the field. The research brought up the employment status of agents, and I found it really interesting because it feels like a bit of a contradiction in the industry.
It's a legal tightrope.
Yeah.
In the industry, the buzzword is independent contractor.
Right.
Most salespersons want to be independent contractors for tax purposes. They can write off expenses, manage their own business, have more control.
They want to eat what they kill, so to speak.
Exactly. They don't want to be employees with withheld taxes.
Okay.
But looking at the legislation here, specifically the Real Estate and Business Brokers Act, or RIBA. Yeah, the law views things differently regarding supervision. RIBA treats both employees and independent contractors as employees of the brokerage when it comes to the duty of care and supervision.
So the brokerage can't just wash their hands of it and say, hey, he's an independent contractor. We didn't know he was doing something shady.
No, absolutely not. The brokerage is on the hook.
I see.
The contract of service exists. The employer controls and supervises the work. So while the taxman might see a self-employed individual, the real estate regulator sees a supervised agent.
That's a tricky balance.
It is, and that's why new agents in the commercial space almost always start as trainees.
You don't just get a license and go sell a skyscraper.
Oh, no. You apprentice under a senior broker to learn that highly specialized knowledge.
Almost like a guild system.
In practice, yes. You carry the briefcase, you do the research, and you learn how not to get sued.
Speaking of not getting sued, let's talk about the paperwork. When they finally do get into a deal, we run into the OREA forms. So, standard stuff like Form 520 for seller representation and Form 540 for buyer representation. But when you look at the specific clauses available in commercial, we really aren't in Kansas anymore.
No, we are definitely not.
Yeah.
In residential, the clauses are about, fixing the roof or making sure the seller leaves the washer and dryer.
Right.
In commercial, we see clauses that fundamentally change the nature of the asset or the business itself.
Give me an example.
Take the option to purchase.
Right. This is where you lease the building, but you have the right to buy it later.
Yes. Imagine you are a restaurant owner.
Okay.
You don't have the capital to buy the building yet, but you are about to spend $200,000 installing a commercial kitchen, upgrading the ventilation, putting in new floors.
Right. That's a huge sunk cost.
Exactly. You don't want to make that investment if the landlord can just kick you out in 5 years or sell the building to someone who wants to turn it into a shoe store.
You'd lose your whole investment.
Everything. So you negotiate an option to purchase. It gives you security that your investment in the space can eventually convert into ownership.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It locks in a potential future where you own the dirt you're standing on.
Precisely.
And then there is the first right of refusal. I really love this one. It sounds like a power move.
It's a defensive shield, really.
Okay.
It says, Mr. Landlord, if you ever decide to sell this building and someone makes you an offer, you have to show that offer to me first, and I have the right to match it.
Right.
It prevents the tenant from having the rug pulled out from under them by a new landlord who might have totally different plans for the property.
And then there's the transfer of shares or assets clause.
Yes.
This was a wait, what moment for me when reading the source material. Because sometimes you aren't even buying the building.
This is very common in CRE. Sometimes a building is owned by a corporation that owns nothing else but that building.
Just a shell company for the property.
Exactly. So instead of buying the property, which triggers land transfer taxes, retitling fees, and a massive administrative burden,
Right.
you simply buy the shares of the corporation.
Wow.
You are buying the company that holds the title. The building never actually changes hands on paper. The ownership of the company does.
That is slick. It's like buying the wallet instead of taking the cash out of it.
That is a fantastic analogy, but it comes with skeletons.
Skeletons.
If you buy the company, you buy its entire history.
Oh.
If that company didn't tee its taxes 5 years ago, or if it has a pending lawsuit from a slip and fall in 2018,
Guess whose problem that is now?
yours. because you are the company now.
Yeah. Inherit the liability.
Exactly. This is why the due diligence on a share transfer is incredibly deep. You need to audit the entire history of the corporation, not just the physical building.
Which brings us to getting paid.
Commissions.
Yes. There is a specific detail in the source material about deposits that I found fascinating.
Oh, the forfeited deposits.
Right. In residential, if a buyer walks away and forfeits their deposit, it's a mess, but the agent usually just loses out. But in commercial, the brokerage has a specific claim.
Yes, it's a protection mechanism.
Okay.
Let's say a buyer puts down a $100,000 deposit on a warehouse, but then defaults.
They just walk away.
Right. The seller might keep that deposit as a penalty.
Makes sense.
But the brokerage steps in and says, hey, we did months of work to bring you this buyer. We did our job. The deal failed because of the buyer, not us.
Right.
So commercial listing agreements often have a clause where the brokerage retains 50% of that forfeited deposit up to the amount of the commission they would have earned.
So they don't go home empty-handed after all that work.
They shouldn't. They put in the time.
Yeah.
And speaking of protection, we have to mention indemnification.
Yes. The source documents talk about this a lot.
In commercial deals, liability is everywhere,
Okay.
especially environmental liability. The agreements are heavy on basically protecting the brokerage and the seller from claims regarding contamination or injury.
Because if it turns out the building is sitting on a toxic waste dump, the lawsuits will fly.
Exactly. And everyone wants a shield.
That actually leads us perfectly into the next section. We've set the rules, we've met the players, now let's enter the arena.
The lease.
The lease. And you called this the Wild West earlier. Why the cowboy metaphor?
Because in the residential world, the government is kind of like a helicopter parent.
Okay.
In Ontario, for instance, there is a standard lease form. You have to use it.
Right.
The Landlord and Tenant Board protects tenants. You can't just evict someone. It's highly regulated to protect people's homes.
And in commercial.
In commercial, the government basically looks at the landlord and the tenant and says, you're both adults. You're both businesses. Good luck.
Wow.
There is no standard government-issued lease for commercial properties. None.
So every lease is a custom job.
Every single one. It could be 10 pages. It could be 100 pages. It's drafted by lawyers, usually favoring whoever has the most leverage. And here is the real kicker.
What's that?
The signed lease wording takes precedence over the Commercial Tenancies Act on almost everything.
Wait, hold on. So the contract overrides the actual law?
In most cases, yes.
Yeah.
We call it contract supremacy.
Okay.
If the act says one thing, but you signed a lease that says another regarding rent, operating costs, or repairs,
The lease wins.
the lease wins. You can't run to the government and say, that's not fair.
Right.
The court will look at you and say, you signed it, you're a business entity, you should have read it.
That is terrifying if you don't know what you're doing.
It gets worse for tenants.
How so?
In residential, if the landlord refuses to fix the furnace, a tenant might try to withhold rent or go to the board.
Right, as a negotiating tactic.
In commercial, the tenant's obligation to pay rent is usually absolute.
Absolute.
Yes. Even if the roof is leaking and the landlord is ignoring you, you generally cannot stop paying rent.
Ever.
If you do, you are in breach.
And if you are in breach,
The landlord can lock you out.
lock you out, just like that.
If the lease allows it, yes. Landlord power is significant here.
Wow.
If a tenant fails to comply with lease terms, maybe they are using the space for something not allowed or they missed a rent payment, the landlord has the right to terminate.
And they don't have to wait months for a hearing at a landlord-tenant board.
They do not. They can often essentially change the locks on a very short timeline.
So if you have a dispute, where do you actually go? There's no commercial landlord-tenant board.
No. You go to court, real court.
Real court.
If it's under $35,000, you go to small claims court. If it's over that, you are in the Superior Court of Justice.
Which means lawyers.
Lawyers, expensive fees, and massive wait times. It is not a place you want to end up.
Okay, so the lesson here is read the lease,
Yes.
then hire a lawyer to read the lease.
Yeah.
Then read it again.
Absolutely. The lease is the law. In this world, you live and die by the fine print.
Okay, let's move to Section 3, the toolkit of due diligence. In residential, you get a home inspection, maybe look at the title, and you're done in 5 days. You mentioned earlier that commercial takes longer. What are we actually looking for during those 30, 60, or 90 days?
We are looking for skeletons in the closet.
Okay.
And in commercial real estate, there are 4 main closets. We call them the 4 pillars of inspection.
Okay, break them down first. Pillar 1.
Financial and operational.
Right.
You aren't just buying a building, you are often buying an income stream. So you need to audit the books.
So you need the rent rolls.
Exactly. Who is paying what, and are they actually paying it?
You need the tax bills.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need the employee records if you are taking over staff. You need to verify that the net operating income the seller claims is real.
Checking the receipts.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, is this business actually making the money they say it is?
Exactly. You can't take the seller's word for it.
Right. And pillar 2.
Legal.
Okay.
This is title checks, existing mortgages, and surveys. But the big one here is zoning compliance. Yes. Just because a business is operating there right now doesn't mean it's legally allowed to be there.
That sounds bizarre to me.
Yeah.
How can a business operate illegally in plain sight?
It happens all the
Hopefully.
time. Maybe they started as a small repair shop, but they've slowly expanded into manufacturing, which isn't zoned for that area.
Ah.
Or maybe they built an addition without a permit 10 years ago.
And if you buy it,
The city could shut you down the very next day. You need to ensure the use is officially permitted.
that's a huge risk.
Yeah.
Okay, what's pillar 3?
Structural.
This is the physical exam.
Right. But it's not just is the paint peeling, it's the building envelope, the roof, the walls, the foundation, it's the mechanical systems. Commercial HVAC units aren't like your home AC. A rooftop unit can cost $50,000 to replace.
Wow.
If you buy a building with 5 broken units, you just added $250,000 to your purchase price.
That completely changes the ROI.
Exactly. And life safety systems, sprinklers, fire alarms. If those aren't up to code, the fire marshal can shut you down on day 1.
Okay, and the 4th pillar. This is the one that sounds the scariest to me, based on the reading.
Environmental.
Yes.
This is the big one. An environmental site assessment, or ESA. This is critical because hazards and contaminants pose massive financial risks.
Give me a nightmare scenario. Walk me through how bad it can get.
Okay. You buy a nice, clean-looking retail building. Maybe it's a boutique clothing store now.
Beautiful.
But 40 years ago, the previous owner was a dry cleaner.
Oh, no.
And back then, the regulations were very different, and they were dumping chemicals, solvents, straight out the back door.
Just into the dirt.
Exactly. Those chemicals are now in the soil and the groundwater. You buy the building.
Right.
In the eyes of the law, you now own that pollution.
Even though I didn't dump it. Even though it happened 40 years ago before I was even involved.
Doesn't matter. You own the land, you own the problem. The government can force you to remediate it.
Remediate meaning cleanup.
Right. That involves digging up the land, treating the soil, hauling it away. It can cost millions.
Billions.
In some cases, the cleanup cost exceeds the value of the land itself. You could buy $1 million property and end up with a $2 million liability.
That is absolutely terrifying. So how do you protect yourself from that?
You get an ESA Phase 1. A consultant looks at the history of the site. They look at old maps, city directories, aerial photos.
This historical records.
Right.
Yeah.
If that comes back clean, great. But if they find a history of gas stations or dry cleaners, you go to Phase 2.
What's phase 2?
That's where they actually bring in a rig and drill into the ground to test the soil and water samples. They look for the physical evidence of contamination.
This sounds like way too much for one real estate agent to handle.
It is entirely too much. That's why we talk about the expert army.
The expert arm?
Yes, a salesperson cannot do this alone. If an agent tries to act as a structural engineer or a lawyer, they are opening themselves up to massive liability. You absolutely need third-party professionals.
So who is on the roster for this army?
Well, you need lawyers for the title, insurance, and lease review.
Oh.
You need accountants to analyze the tax implications and capital cost allowance, which we'll get to later.
Right.
You need environmental engineers for the ESA.
Okay.
You need town planners or land use consultants if you plan to navigate the zoning. And you need appraisers to tell you what the place is actually worth based on professional market data, not just what the seller wants.
It really is a team sport.
It has to be. The liability is too high to play solo. You need a shield wall of experts around you.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit. We've looked at the building, but we need to look at where the building actually sits.
The landscape.
The landscape. This brings us to section 4, zoning and planning. I feel like zoning is one of those things people find incredibly boring until it ruins their life.
That is the most accurate description of zoning I have ever heard.
Right.
It dictates everything. Usage, setbacks, which is how far back from the road you have to be.
Signage.
Signage, noise levels, parking requirements, building height. It is the invisible box that completely surrounds your property.
And this is all enforced by the municipality.
Yes. And it starts with the Building Code Act. That sets the standards for safety, fire protection, structural integrity.
Right.
You cannot just build whatever you want. You need a permit. The process is always application, review for zoning, HVAC, plumbing, then you get the permit, and then inspections.
And you have to post the permit, right?
You cannot proceed without that permit physically posted on the site. If you do, they will issue a stop work order and you will be fined.
Now, what happens if the rules change? Let's say I own a factory and the city decides my neighborhood is now strictly residential. Do I have to tear down my factory?
No. This is a very important concept in the source material called non-conforming use, or colloquially grandfathering.
Grandfather.
Right. If your use existed before the new bylaw was passed, you can continue. It is a legal non-conforming use. The law respects that you were there first.
Okay, so I'm safe.
As long as you don't stop.
What do you mean?
The use must be continuous.
Oh.
If you shut down the factory for a year and leave the building vacant, you lose that status. You cannot restart it. You now have to conform to the new residential zoning.
So use it or lose it is actually the law here.
Exactly. And if you want to build something entirely new, you run into site plan control.
What's that?
This is the municipality's power to demand amenities before they approve your development.
Amenities. Like a gym for the building.
No, amenities for the city itself.
Oh, I see.
They will say, okay, you want to build this strip mall. We need you to pay for widening the road in front of it. We need specific landscaping.
Right.
We need a designated trash collection area that is screened from view. They can effectively hold your permit hostage until you agree to make the property look and function the way they want.
It's a negotiation with the city.
A negotiation where they hold almost all the cards.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So we know the rules, we know the risks. Now let's look at the menu. What can we actually buy?
The classifications of property.
Exactly. The outline breaks down the different sectors. Let's start with office buildings. I really didn't realize there was a class system here.
Oh, yes. It's very hierarchical. You have Class A and A+.
The luxury suite.
These are the prestige buildings. Downtown core, high-speed elevators, marble lobbies, gold-certified environmental systems.
The big leagues.
The tenants are banks, international law firms, tech giants. They pay the highest rents because the building acts as a status symbol for them. The address itself is an asset.
Okay, then Class B.
The workhorses. Good locations, well-maintained, but maybe a bit older. The finishes aren't quite as fancy. The tenants are solid businesses, accountants, smaller marketing firms, but maybe not Fortune 500s.
And Class C.
The budget option.
Huh.
Less desirable locations, older technology, maybe no central AC, just window units.
Right.
Lower rents. These are often targeted by developers for renovation. You buy a Class C, fix it up, and try to turn it into a Class B.
Moving on to retail. This feels like a sector in crisis, or at least in massive transition.
Transition is definitely the right word.
Yeah.
We have the spectrum from big box power centers or Walmarts and Home Depots to strip malls all the way down to downtown boutiques. But the online threat is very real.
E-commerce.
Exactly. E-commerce has forced physical retail to adapt aggressively.
How so?
You can't just be a place that stores inventory anymore.
Right, because Amazon does that better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to offer an experience or superior customer service. That's why you see retailers investing heavily in design, in showrooms, in click-and-collect infrastructure.
Makes sense.
If a store is just shelves of products you can buy online for cheaper, it's dying. Retail real estate is becoming about entertainment and convenience to survive.
Right. Now, industrial. This used to be the boring part of town, but now with logistics, it's hot.
It is the absolute darling of the industry right now.
Yeah.
Warehouses, manufacturing, distribution. Here, the sources distinguish between the user and the investor.
What's the fundamental difference there?
A user needs the building to actually make things. They have high capital costs for machinery, power upgrades.
They care about the physical space.
Yes, they care about ceiling height and loading docks. An investor, on the other hand, doesn't care about making widgets.
What do they want?
They want a creditworthy tenant who will sign a 10-year lease. They want stability. They are buying the lease, not the walls.
Got it. Okay, next up. Multi-residential. This is slightly confusing. Isn't residential the exact thing we are contrasting this with?
In this context, multi-residential refers to large complexes, apartment buildings.
Oh,
You are buying a business that happens to rent homes.
I see.
It's defined as more than one dwelling unit, but usually we are talking about sixplexes, 50-unit buildings, that sort of thing.
And what drives this market?
Driven entirely by demographics. In-migration and out-migration. If people are moving to a city for jobs, multi-res is pure gold.
Right.
It's often considered the safest asset class because no matter what the economy does, everyone needs a place to sleep.
True. Now, farms. I never really thought of farms as commercial real estate, but of course they are businesses.
They're massive businesses.
Yeah.
And their value is incredibly complex. It's not just the land. It's the soil quality. It's the proximity to urban centers. In fact, investors often buy farms just to hold the land until the city expands to reach it.
Oh, to develop it later.
Exactly. And in places like Canada specifically, it's heavily about quotas.
The right to produce.
Yes. Dairy, eggs, poultry, these are supply-managed industries.
No.
The quota, the actual license to produce a certain amount of milk, can sometimes be worth as much as or more than the physical land itself.
Wow.
It's a commodity in its own right.
Finally, vacant land. It sounds simple, but you have two distinct types mentioned in the research: brownfield and greenfield.
Greenfield is the easy one. It's undeveloped land, usually agricultural or landscape design land, a totally blank canvas.
And brownfields.
Brownfields are the tricky ones. These are contaminated or abandoned industrial lands.
Why would anyone intentionally buy a contaminated lot?
Location and incentives.
Okay.
Often these are right in the city center, old factories near the downtown core. They are prime real estate if you can fix them. And the government offers incentives, like the Brownfield Statute Law Amendment Act, to actually reduce the liability and cost for developers who are willing to clean them up.
So way to recycle land.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it requires very deep pockets and a lot of patience.
Okay, so we've picked our building or our land. Now we have to actually pay for it.
Yeah.
Section 6. Follow the money.
The financing.
First, how do we own it? It's not just a matter of putting my name on the deed. Right.
Rarely. Ownership structures are key here. You have sole proprietorship, which is easy to start but very risky. You have unlimited liability.
Right. If someone slips on the ice outside, they can sue you and take your personal house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then you have partnerships, 2 or more people, but the really important one is limited partnerships.
Why is that one so important?
This is crucial for investors. In a limited partnership, you have the general partner who runs the show and holds the liability.
Okay.
And then you have limited partners who are just passive investors. Their liability is strictly limited to their investment.
So if I put in $50,000, the absolute most I can lose is $50,000.
Exactly. You are betting on the jockey, not just the horse.
That makes a lot of sense.
Then you have corporations, a separate legal entity. This is very common because it shields the individual shareholders.
And what about the really big players?
For them, you have REITs, real estate investment trusts. This allows people to invest in real estate exactly like they would invest in a stock on the exchange.
Let's do the math on the actual loans.
Sure.
The commercial financing math. You mentioned 3 acronyms earlier that sort of rule this world: LTV, DSCR, and cap rate. Let's unpack them using a hypothetical $1 million building.
Okay, perfect. LTV is loan to value.
Right.
In residential, you might get a high-ratio mortgage for up to 95% of the home's value.
Yeah.
In commercial, lenders are much stricter. Usually the maximum is 80%, and often it's lower, like 65 to 75%.
So if you buy a $1 million building, the bank might only give you $650,000.
Exactly. You need a massive down payment to even get in the game.
Okay, now the second one. DSCR, debt service coverage ratio. The notes make this sound like the most critical metric.
It really is the gatekeeper. It is the net operating income, or NOI, divided by the mortgage payments.
Okay.
Lenders usually want a ratio of 1.2 or higher.
What does 1.2 mean in plain English for the listener?
It means the building must generate enough cash to pay the mortgage, plus an extra 20% cushion.
I see.
If your mortgage payments are $100,000 a year, the building needs to make $120,000 in profit.
And if it only makes exactly $100,000?
A ratio of 1.0, the bank says, too risky.
Why?
Because if a single tenant leaves or the roof leaks and needs repair, you default on the loan. They want to see that 20% buffer to feel safe.
That makes perfect sense. And finally, the cap rate. Capitalization rate.
This is the return on investment if you paid all cash for the building.
Okay.
It's the NOI divided by market value. Essentially, it is a measure of risk.
Give me an example of how that fluctuates.
Sure. A beautiful Class A office building in downtown Toronto might have a very low cap rate, say 4%.
Why so low?
Because it's incredibly safe. It's almost like a government bond. But a rundown strip mall in a struggling town might have a high cap rate, maybe 10%.
Because it's risky.
Extremely risky. The higher the risk, the higher the return an investor demands to put their money there. Cap rates tell you exactly how the market feels about that specific property's safety.
High risk, high reward.
Precisely.
Financing isn't just a standard 25-year mortgage in this space either, right? The notes list some really exotic loan types,
Oh, yes.
like bridge loans and gap loans.
A bridge loan is exactly what it sounds like. You need to close the deal today, but your permanent financing from the big bank doesn't kick in until next month.
So it bridges the time gap.
Right. It gets you across the river.
Right.
But it's very expensive short-term money.
And a gap loan.
A gap loan fills the hole between construction advances and the final permanent mortgage.
Okay. Then there's the wraparound mortgage.
This is a creative tool. A new mortgage literally wraps around an existing one. The new lender takes over the payments of the old mortgage and lends you additional money on top of it.
So it sits in a junior priority position.
Exactly.
And then the scary one we found in the research, the blanket mortgage.
Yes. This is where one single loan covers two or more properties at the same time. Developers use this a lot.
Oh, it makes it scary.
The scary clause is that you generally cannot sell one of the properties without the lender's consent. It legally locks your portfolio together.
So if one property fails,
They can potentially foreclose on all of them.
it ties all your ships together. If one sinks, they all sink.
It is a very dangerous fleet to command.
Before you actually get any of this money, you need the paperwork. Letter of intent versus letter of commitment.
Right. The letter of intent, or LOI, is basically the handshake.
Yep.
It sets out the broad terms. It's usually non-binding. It just says, I am interested in buying this, and here is roughly what I'd be willing to pay.
Just feeling it out.
Yeah. The letter of commitment, though, is the marriage proposal. It's the formal approval from the bank, but it comes with strict conditions.
Likewise.
They'll say, we will lend you this money if you provide clean environmental reports, valid surveys, and proof of commercial insurance.
All right, so we bought the building, we are operating, we're making money. Now, the inevitable part of the podcast, the tax man cometh. Section 7.
Death and taxes.
Always. In commercial real estate, taxes are a huge consideration. First up, capital gains.
Yes.
We hear this term thrown around a lot.
Mm-hmm.
How does it work specifically here?
It's all about the 50% rule. Only 50% of the profit you make when you sell the building is actually taxable.
Okay, let's walk through the math example directly from our source notes to make this crystal clear.
All right, let's do it. You bought a building for $540,000.
Got it.
You spent $150,000 on renovations. So your cost base is now $690,000.
Yeah.
Years later, you sell it for $1.26 million.
Nice profit.
But you had $54,000 in selling expenses, like agent fees and lawyers.
Right, so the profit isn't just the sale price minus the buy price.
Not at all. The math is sale price, which is $1.26 million, minus your cost base of $690,000, minus expenses of $54,000.
Which leaves a capital gain of $336,000.
Correct.
And I pay tax on that whole $336,000.
No, that's the beauty of the 50% rule. You only pay tax on 50% of that gain.
So my taxable capital gain is just $168,000.
Exactly. That amount is added to your income for the year and taxed at your marginal rate.
That is a very significant tax break compared to earning that as regular income.
It really is. But then we have to talk about CCA, capital cost allowance.
This is depreciation.
Yes. The government acknowledges that buildings physically wear out over time, so they allow you to deduct a percentage of the building's cost from your income every single year to lower your taxes.
What's the typical rate?
Usually 4% per year for buildings, using what's called the declining balance method.
That sounds great. Lower taxes today.
It is great today, but there is a massive trap waiting for you.
Oh.
It's called recapture.
Recapture.
If you sell the building later for more than its depreciated value, which almost always happens because real estate generally goes up,
Right.
the government steps in and says, hey, we gave you all those tax breaks for years because we thought the building was losing value, but it gained value.
So they want it back.
They want that tax back. You have to add that saved tax back into your income all at once in the year of the sale.
Ouch. So CCA is really a tax deferral, not tax forgiveness.
That is exactly the right way to think about it. And finally, for taxes, we have HST, Harmonized Sales Tax.
In residential, if you buy a used house or resale, there's no HST.
Correct. But in commercial,
Commercial sales are taxable.
yes, they are. That adds 13%, at least in Ontario, straight to the purchase price.
13% on a multi-million-dollar building is a huge cash flow hit.
It's massive. However, there's a mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Most commercial buyers immediately register for HST themselves
Why does that help?
because it allows them to claim an input tax credit.
Okay.
So they pay the tax at closing, but they claim it right back from the government. So they don't actually pay it out of pocket effectively in the long run.
It's just a flow-through.
It's a flow through, but you absolutely have to manage your cash flow carefully to handle the timing of it.
Wow. Okay, so we've covered the players, the contracts, the wild leases, the intensive inspections, the zoning laws, the property classifications, the complex financing, and the tax traps.
We covered a lot of ground.
My head is spinning a little bit, but in a very good way. It really feels like we've taken an X-ray of the city itself.
That is exactly the goal of looking at these sources. Commercial real estate is a professional sport. It requires you to be part lawyer, part engineer, part financier, and part city planner.
So, synthesizing all this, what are the ultimate takeaways for the listener?
It really all comes down to the balance of risk versus reward.
Right.
The risks in CRE are significantly higher than residential. You have environmental liability, massive vacancies, and complex laws that absolutely do not protect you if you make a mistake.
Contract supremacy.
Exactly.
Oh.
But the rewards, the scale, the long-term leases, the incredible stability of solid business tenants, that is the true engine of massive wealth generation.
Not for the faint of heart.
No. But for the educated, it is incredibly powerful.
I really love that perspective.
Let's
So here is our final thought for you, the listener, as we wrap up this deep dive.
hear it.
Next time you are on that commute and you walk past a strip mall or you look up at a massive office tower, don't just look at the bricks. Don't just look at the glass. Look at the leases. Ask yourself, who actually owns this? How is it zoned? What is the cap rate in this neighborhood? Because that is where the real building exists. It exists on the paper, not just on the concrete.
The paper is the property.
Perfectly said. Thanks for diving deep into the source material with us today. We'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.